What's happening, guys? I'm going to highlight a deck today that is in the current meta and is tier 1. It's the choice that you'll make for Gul'dan, your Warlock hero. We're going to talk through some of the fundamentals, but I'm going to show you gameplay so that you can understand how the deck plays out while I talk about the deck. So we'll get into some games and I'll show you the deck list after. So this is a variant on an old control warrior archetype. An old control warlock archetype. So warlock in the past had two variants. So they had zoo variant, which is an aggro deck, and your control warlock. So control is built around having a big hand, and it plays into warlock's hero ability. So there's synergy there with holding a big hand and the tap ability. So using the hero power of Warlock to take life away from your character but gain a card.
I must protect the wild.
It's a fundamental that has lasted throughout Hearthstone so far, and you can see how life and gaining cards and abilities works here straight away from this starting hand. So this one drop deals damage to my hero and draws a card in the hope of holding a big hand, and it synergizes with this. So on turn 4 deals damage based on how much damage cards have done while you hold this card in your hand. So hopefully that'll make sense as we're playing. So I am playing against a druid, and I am going to anticipate he is an aggro druid, and hopefully isn't a jade druid, which is another form of control that we can lose to. Normally you would mulligan for board clears, which is the Hellfire. We have big synergy with this 4-drop. So this is going to do damage to us, and we're going to draw a card. These two cards give us health and do damage at the same time based on how much damage we've took from other cards. So this gave us 2 damage and it's synergized. So now this does 5 damage and gives us 5 life instead of 3. So again, we could have done nothing, or we could have tapped, and we want to hold a heavy hand, so we tap. There's a decision to make here if we trade or not, if he would rather play a 2-drop or trade with us, or if he hero powers. So there's not much in this decision. I can make him use a whole turn by hero powering and killing this minion, or I can trade and make him use a whole turn. We haven't got anything to develop, so I think it would be better to not trade and make him either trade his minion or use his whole turn killing ours. So we kind of got punished in a way there, because his turn 3 allowed him to gain a crystal, which is what he ultimately wants to do as a jade druid, and develop a minion at the same time. So it was something that I should have thought about, or something we could have thought about. But in the line of play, I think we made the correct play from our hand. And tap again. And it's a good practice to hover over here and understand how many cards you hold in your hand at one time. So now we have the board clear option. And we also have the Mountain Giant. So Mountain Giant synergizes with our tap ability. Each time we tap and gain a card, it reduces the cost of a Mountain Giant. So we can effectively cheat out an 8 mana card for 4 mana because we hold a big hand. Now that synergizes with our strategy of tapping. This is a lot of pressure, however, and the damage dealt will clear the board using Hellfire, and buff our other cards up. So I would take that as a stance, because Hellfire isn't getting much better. For Jade Druid, it's reached its top. So I'm going to Hellfire and buff our 2 cards. We can play Mountain Giant the turn after, hopefully on an empty board. And even if he does what he's done and plays a ramp card into a Jade card, we now have an advantage, because there's less of a board to trade into our Mountain Giant. Now it's 4 mana versus 8. Consideration is always what your opponent's top amount of mana can do. So he has a taunt card that will create taunts for how many minions I have. He can draw with Nourish like he is, or he can boost his crystals. The amount of ramp that he has played so far suggests to me that he has a 10 mana card in his hand, which is very powerful. Draws him 5 cards, gains him 5 armor, and creates a 5/5. So I need to be aware that I'm going to be taking on a 5/5 in the next turn.
So many possibilities.
So I can make a tough decision and risk discarding 2 cards, or I can tap for a card. There's no card in my hand that can deal with the 5/5 that he's putting down, so I'm going to play a risky Doom Guard. So this deck is a control combo deck. So turn 10, you have a card that lets you summon all of the demons that have died in this game. So a strategy for the combo will be to play this card. So this card will kill my Doom Guard and copy 2 more Doom Guards. So I can make a trade, kill my Doom Guard, and I can play this Death Pact. So this will gain me 8 life back, and it synergizes with my other cards. So now when these Doom Guards get returned back from my 10 drop, we will have 3 Doom Guards in play, doing a total of 15 damage to his face. See, we have another Doom Guard. We have a Doom Guard at low risk. So they're always tough decisions to make. I don't think Defile is going to get any better. So we might want to Defile.
So many possibilities.
Play now all of our defense mechanisms, so our defense cards are the Void Lords, have been discarded. But all of the Doom Guards are out of play in our hands. So we're hoping to get the combo off to end the game. Now we have 25 damage coming back, I believe. So we have 3 Doom Guards as well as these if he kills them. So it would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 damage if we draw our Gul'dan and he can kill these remaining Doom Guards. a big feature of Warlock is risk and reward, and at the moment we took risks in this game. This card synergizes with Doomguard again because it gets us a free Doomguard and a 3/3 charge minion. And when Gul'dan brings it back, it's another Doomguard. So this is the combo. So Gul'dan is here. And this combo came off as well. It's also a factor that you can use Tal'Daram on a cube that you have destroyed a Doomguard with, and you'll have 2 cubes that can replicate Doomguards, which let the combo go off again. I think it's worth it just to play the Gul'dan here. Try and flood the board with damage. Because we're chasing the win right now. And his minions will only do more and more damage to him as the game goes on. And that's lethal.
Nicely done.
I'm just going to show you the deck and talk through the synergies and highlight strategies. So Dark Pack lets you take a lot of damage in the early stages and stabilize later on in the mid game. So the deck lets you cheat out powerful cards that keep you in the game, stop you from dying, and let you draw your combo. One of those cheat cards are Voidlord, and you can draw that and make it come out early with Skull of Manari. So this will summon you a demon at the end of each turn. And if you hold demons that are higher than 5 mana in your hand at the time, you will cheat out higher mana monsters. This is an old aspect of Warlock, Control Warlock. The normal cheat cards for those decks in the past were Mountain Giants and Molten Giants. The Voidlord has replaced the Molten Giant, but is a more effective tool of defense versus the Mountain Giant. In the old days, you would cheat a Molten Giant out when you had low life and hope that your opponent didn't have damage over the top of your taunts, because you would cheat it out for 0 mana and you would taunt it up. This is effectively a replacement for that old strategy, because you can cheat it out for 5 mana. It's not as powerful as the Molten Giant, but gives you more security in terms of a taunt. So it's much more stable in stopping an effect coming through. It also synergizes with your Blood Reaver Gul'dan on turn 10, because you resummon the Void Lords and they're another defensive tool. So against aggro decks, you want to copy Void Lords instead of your Doomguards, because they will out and out win you the game, because a lot of aggro decks rely on killing you within a certain amount of time, and their steam runs out if they cannot kill you before that allotted amount of mana or time that you give them. That in effect is a defensive tool alongside your spellstones. So taking damage for drawing your combo using Cobalt Librarians and Hellfires allows you to activate these spellstones, as you saw in the previous game. And the more that you proc the spellstones, the higher amount of damage they do and the higher amount of regeneration in terms of life total they will give you. The combo factor to the deck as you saw at the end of the last, illustrated the power of Doom Guards and what happens when you copy those Doom Guards. And the synergy between Gul'dan and those Doom Guards. But equally, you can imagine a board full of Void Lords against an aggro deck. So a Void Lord, once it dies, for a start off, a Void Lord is a very powerful card, a very powerful taunt in itself. It's difficult to get through a 3/9, and once the 3/9 is dead, it summons 3 more taunts at 1/3s, and that is again difficult to get through. The death rattle means that you might have had to have procced minions to kill the Void Lord in the first place, or use a damage spell just to get through the Void Lord. So you can see the benefits of how powerful a taunt it is, and how much that destroys aggro if drawn with Gul'dan in multiples, using the cube and using Minari, Taldram. So they are in effect how you stabilize a tricky board and how you come back and win as a control deck. The combo aspects with Doomguard you saw. It's very effective against mid-range decks in that once that combo comes into effect, there isn't much more damage a mid-range deck can do to you. You obviously, the perils of this deck are your aggro, because if you don't draw anti-aggro tools in the early game, you can be killed before you establish your cubes, before you establish your Void Lords. And in the last game, we never drew the Skull of Minari, so it didn't let us have the chance of drawing these Void Lords. But we were aggressive, so knowing the deck and knowing when to be aggressive and knowing when to stand off lets you win more matchups against certain archetypes in Hearthstone. And not letting the Jade Druid establish a board is the reason why we won the last game, because we were aggressive with our Doom Guards. We knew chances that we would take to win the game. The N'Zoth in my deck is a yes and a no for this deck. So some people will favour, we have another card that's very powerful that I don't have. I think it's a 4-drop. Yeah, so this card, after you summon a minion, trigger its death rattle effect. So obviously that synergizes really well with the cubes, and it synergizes with your death rattles. So the Void Lords, making more of the taunts, activating the taunts before they're ready. It helps with aggro. It helps with your combo effects. So that makes your deck very powerful. But my 10-drop in my deck also synergizes with my Void Lords, and it synergizes with my my possessed lackeys, my cubes. So those aspects to the deck are your decisions. So mine is more top heavy control, yours might be more combo orientated, but they're just a thing to think about when you construct this deck. I hope that I have been of help to you when considering this deck. It is tier 1 at the moment, and I think it's a very solid control choice. Probably I'd say it's in line with Jade Druid. You just saw it beat a Jade Druid. It's just knowing your matchups like anything in Hearthstone. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the deck, and I hope you enjoy playing Hearthstone. Thank you for watching today.